Good afternoon, all. Sidika O'Brien, a pleasant good afternoon to you. Clinton Allen, good day. Neil Francois, always present. Good afternoon to you, sir. Ebony Jamoon, good afternoon to you. Jennifer Ashby Okuli, good afternoon. Val Bowen, hi Val. Winston Jones, greetings. Dion Charles, hi Dion. Sarah Richards, Ruben Rogers, Andre Gaskin, Helen Faria Trotman. Janice Batiste, Jeremy Lewis, good afternoon to all of you. Kevin Henderson. So I'm jumping on just for a little bit this afternoon, literally a little bit, because I have my constituency children's party today. It starts around 2:30, 3 o'clock. So as MP, I have to be there, although it's the habit of MPs and members of government to arrive fashionably late, but I try to avoid that. Kurt Dalzon, Joan Austin, Charles Crease, good afternoon to all of you, and Pierre. I didn't think I was going to do the live today, but I was going through Facebook and I saw some things that I felt I just needed to throw my 2 cents on. So, but before I get there, so last week we had the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association held a residency program in Trinidad, and basically what that is, it is a training program in parliamentary politics and how to, as parliamentarians, new parliamentarians, what is expected of us, and to kind of fine-tune how we navigate this new situation. And there were supposed to be, well, there were a number of attendees from around the world, Commonwealth countries, of course, who came to Trinidad to participate in the exercise. It was a 5-day exercise, 4 days of intense training. And interestingly, a number of the persons who were supposed to attend the event did not. And these are persons from different countries who, because of what is happening with Trinidad and Tobago, Venezuela, United States, that whole dynamic, were concerned about their safety, and they, at the last minute, chose not to come to Trinidad and Tobago. And this would have been indicated to us by the clerk of the House in his opening remarks, as well as the chief facilitator from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, who is a citizen of Mauritius. So we had persons from Malta, Kenya, Australia, Nova Scotia, Alberta, Anguilla, St. Lucia, a couple other countries. But several participants from other Commonwealth countries chose not to come because of that. So the world is watching from as far off as we could think. And why we were thinking, oh, well, Trinidad is here, and some countries so remote and so far off that they are not concerned about what is happening in this part of the world. They are concerned to the point where many of them felt that their safety would have been compromised if they came here for this training session, this residency program, and they chose not to come. So I just have one question to throw out to the supporters of the UNC, who love to blame the PNM for fear-mongering and spreading rumors and propaganda with respect to this whole situation involving Venezuela. Right? They love to every time. So the PNM and the PNM 1% media, and all they're doing is trying to create panic and provide false information. So all the delegates who were supposed to come to this training last week and did not, out of fear and concern for their safety. I also saw the German government would have put out travel advisory, advising their citizens to be careful right? Or against coming to Trinidad and Tobago at this particular point in time. And so I just want to ask the supporters at the UNC, did these persons get their information from the PNM? Did they go on Google and Yahoo and whatever other search engine and say, hey, what we are going to disregard what is being reported in the international news media, and we are going to go and Google opposition Trinidad and Tobago, and we are going to Google newspapers, news outlets Trinidad and Tobago, so that we could get the information from them, right? That's how they got their information and made the decision not to come to this training session, because the PNM apparently is spreading rumors, and the local media that is PNM and is 1% PNM, they apparently have reach. So persons from around the world are looking to these media outlets for their information on what's happening in the region, and not the more established international media houses, right? Or they probably went on Google PNM Facebook page or PNM on YouTube to listen to what the PNM saying, so that they could formulate an opinion with respect to what is happening, and that's why they didn't come. Just thought I would put that out there for context, right? So that those persons who didn't come because of their concern, it speaks to the fact that I'm sure there are other countrymen, some of the other countrymen also feel the same way. And they are looking on at what is happening. And I'm sure they look at CNN and MSNBC and Al Jazeera and Reuters and Washington Post and the New York Times and all of these different outlets to get their information. Right? They're listening to the utterances of the President of the United States of America and formulating their opinions on whether or not this is a good place to come. And given the fact that, normally at this time of the year, and what we see in parts of North America, where it is extremely cold. In fact, I saw a couple of days ago when New York was under snow. I was there last year around this time, and you got minimal snow. We got some, but not much, not as much as you're seeing now. And so one of the attractions on this side of the world is a nice warm climate. And so persons who live in these cold countries and who might now be under winter conditions and are not really inclined towards a white Christmas, because perhaps they've experienced it before and decided they want to, get a little sun, right? Trinidad and Tobago would not be one of the countries that they would consider coming to escape the white Christmas, because of the uncertainty that exists on this side of the world, all right? And it is quite likely that Carnival may also be a casualty of that, because as things continue to heat up, now we've seen the most recent development, the seizure of an oil tanker by the US government. And again, reports of the US president, kind of teasing every now and again about the imminent commencement of land incursions with respect to this campaign. Persons are concerned, and the lack of certainty, so that when you hear the government of Trinidad and Tobago say, don't worry yourself, everything got yeah. The folks that we are depending on to come here to spend the foreign exchange, they are not so comforted by the words of our government, assuming that they even hear the words of our government. But given the fact that the main players in the government, whose responsibility it is to treat with this and to provide information, they can't, they're not singing from the same hymn book. They're not all on the same page. And when you have no less a person than the Prime Minister, oftentimes not knowing what is happening, giving conflicting explanations, saying one thing today and something else tomorrow, so that her credibility right now is at an all-time low. If citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are having a problem believing what comes out of the mouth of the Prime Minister and members of our government, what do you think exists outside of Trinidad and Tobago? Right? So when they want to blame the PNM for a whole bunch of things that is happening in the country now, things which we warned you all would have happened, but many of you chose not to listen to us. And though the government would have fulfilled their promise of the 10%, well, the pay raises, the pay increase, which will come in January, was it all worth it? I don't know. Some people may say yes, some people might say no. But anyway, I'm just putting that out there, right? The UNC supporters, when travel advisories would have been issued under the last administration, they had a lot to say. Oh, Trinidad and Tobago is a laughing stock. We used to be at the forefront of the Caribbean and CARICOM and all of that. Yeah, we were number one, and now look, under this PNM government, where are we? I don't recall Germany issuing any travel advisory not to travel to Trinidad and Tobago under the last administration, as they would have done quite recently. And I suppose we would have more travel advisories as things begin to heat up. More travel advisories coming out in the coming days and weeks. If nothing starts, well, even if within the next coming days and weeks. But we can talk about radar, and the radar now is making significant drug finds in the Caroni Swamp. I was just reading an article where some of the tour operators in Caroni Swamp are saying that story have some holes in it, right? Because they were able to pick up this boat with drugs, and the radar was able to indicate that it was not a tour boat. Okay. That's a real sophisticated radar, boy. Boat had no engine, they're just there sitting. And then we had the commissioner of police saying, well, nobody was arrested, but that's okay. At least the drugs are off the street. We took it off and we will destroy it, and so therefore it would not get into the hands of the average citizen to destroy their lives. So it's okay that nobody was arrested, as is the norm when big fines like this are made. The other day we would have seen where there was the fine in Piarco, in the bond in Piarco, I think it was, where you had two different sets of officers from different divisions attending to that report or intelligence that there was a barrel with, I think, was it ammunition in it, guns and ammunition in it. And two different sets of police officers swooped down, collected the barrel, but nobody was arrested. So I want to ask the commissioner, what was the reason for that one? Because I don't think there was any mosquitoes in the bond to bite your officers or sting your officers and give them dengue in the bond. And if there was, perhaps you should have a chat with the Ministry of Health so that they could go and do some spraying in the bond, right? In Piarco. Because if the reason why your officers couldn't stake out and find the persons who were the owners of that large drug find in the Caroni Swamp, because the officers would, get mosquitoes, dengue, and the like. Again, I asked the question, what was the reason for the no arrest the officer with the guns that were found in Piarco? Was it Piarco, boy, or was it in Central? Wherever. The guns that were found in the barrel recently, right? What was the reason for that? No stakeout, no arrests. So all the people who were responsible for this, all these drugs and these guns and so on, are still out there, free to bring in more shipments. But the key to stopping this is not just seizing the contraband, is arresting the people who are responsible for it. Because you would seize one shipment, and then what thing gonna happen? Okay, these people cater for this. They know whenever they bring in a shipment, there's always a possibility that it is going to be seized. And so if it's seized, all right, well, we expected that. It was not outside the realm of possibility, so we move on. Bring in another one. Or maybe that was a decoy to get, to throw off, to bring in another one, different area. Okay. The commissioner's of utterances is sometimes is a cause for pause, but that's his logic. That's his remit. No problem. Okay. Just putting that out there. Then there was the issue of the kidnapping of Mr. Tadi and his wife. And it seems there's a resurgence or an uptick in kidnappings. Because the majority of kidnappings so far for 2025 would have occurred under this administration, not under the PNM. And it would have been interesting, since the government and the TTPS loves to quote statistics and data and figures, and to tell us, well, there's been a decrease in the number of murders year to date, because last year around this time, there was X amount of murders, and now this year it is X amount, and we see a 20 and a 40% decrease and so on. Great, wonderful. Give us similar statistics and figures for kidnappings, please. Tell us, how many kidnappings were there in Trinidad and Tobago for the same period last year? Since you all like to push out statistics to show that there has been a decline and a decrease in crime under this administration as opposed to the last one. So tell us how many kidnappings and how many kidnappings or ransom were reported for the same period last year as compared to the period this year. And please do a comparative and tell us how many home invasions were there between April or the 1st of May and the 1st of December 2024 as compared to 2025. So we could see that if there is an all-round decrease in criminal activity, not just in one particular area, we would love to know these statistics. I'm sure you all have it. And if you're genuine about reporting of how well this government has done with managing the crime situation, you should share that information with us. Because people are asking questions all of a sudden now. Finding the murder statistics is like finding a needle in a haystack. And other crime statistics, which was all in your face. This same time last year, oh yeah, it was all in your face. Didn't have to look far to find it. In fact, you got fed up of seeing it. Any social media platform, open a newspaper, there, all in your face, glaring. Newspaper editorials, letters to the editor, all of that, talking about it. But all of a sudden this year, the same level of exuberance doesn't exist. As I said before, the supporters of the United National Congress have developed the patience of Job. But not just them, you know. All the men and women of letters who knew how to write to the various newspapers to get their opinions across. All of a sudden, what, you all have gone to sleep? Or have you joined the ranks of those who have chosen to bend the knee to this current administration, hoping to get a board appointment or an ambassadorship or something like that? Because we haven't seen too many ambassadors named in the last 8 months. So that field seems to be wide open. So there's still a lot of opportunities for persons to get that. And there's still a number of state boards for which resignations were demanded from the PNM appointed board members, and they obliged. And today these boards remain empty, unmanned, nobody, waiting for the government to find people to put so that the business of these state enterprises and state agencies can continue. So there's a lot of things happening. I mean, they finally appointed a board, I think, to TTMB. I have a friend there who had mentioned to me recently that, you know, that lack of a board was causing some problems, I think, with respect to their bonuses and certain promotions and the like. So they are relieved that they would have finally gotten a board. But there are still a number of other institutions and organizations that are still without board representation. But when you jump in and jump out yourself, resign, well, you resign, well, you will be removed, and any actions that the board takes subsequent to the 30th of April or the 1st of May will be investigated and all kind of thing. And people say, all right, no problem. No problem whatsoever. Right? So I don't know if you have some of these people who waiting, hoping to get called for a board or to be an ambassador or a high commissioner to somewhere. And so in those circumstances, their tongues are tied. They're expressing their discontent with what is happening behind closed doors. But in the public, no, silence, pip. So I was making the point about Mr. Tadi and his kidnapping, right, and that of his wife. Most unfortunate development, where Mr. Tadi would have been recorded indicating that the ransom requested was $2.5 million US. And no less a person than the Prime Minister sought to opine on that development. Most unfortunate in her response when she was asked by the media, and it was reported that she said, 2.5 million US. She found that very fishy, right? And the whole circumstances of that kidnapping to be fishy. Now, I don't know if the Prime Minister has not yet gotten the memo, it hasn't sunk in yet that she is the Prime Minister. And therefore, there are certain things that you cannot see as Prime Minister. In your private capacity, sure, you could make you could see what it is that you want behind closed doors. But as the Prime Minister, there are certain things you cannot and ought not say in public. And to be asked a question by the media with respect to the kidnapping of a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, regardless to whether or not the circumstances may seem fishy to you. As the Prime Minister and as the head of the National Security Council, that is not the type of response that you give. Because this man has friends and he has family members who are concerned about his well-being. And when they hear the head of government trivializing the man's kidnapping in that way, not only is it disrespectful and insensitive, it gives the impression that you all are not treating it seriously. And if the Prime Minister, of all people, can make a statement like that, then if it were me and I was this man's family member, I would be thinking, well, if that is the thinking of the Prime Minister, then what angle is the police investigating this kidnapping from? And are they treating it with the same blasé kind of, don't care them perspective? And what is the thing that is amazing to me is that when members of the last administration would make certain statements, some insensitive, I have no problems in stating that there were certain utterances, comments that were made by members of the former administration that were very insensitive to members of the public. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We know there were things said about Pol Pot and some things said about, the people who took offense to the macaroni pie comment and stuff like that. Of course, we know Colin Booth was raked over the coals for years for the statement, I raised gas once, twice, they didn't riot yet, I think I might raise it a third time and so on, which came across as being tone deaf. Regardless to whether or not that was the intent, and I'm sure it was not, but that is how it came across. And the same people who today are making these insensitive statements wasted no time in vilifying and criticizing and repudiating the members of the former administration who would have made these statements. And today, they are saying things that are infinitely worse and is okay. And the UNC is prepared to laugh at all. Yeah, they're just joking. And the same hypocrites who took offense to what would have been said previously, today they're willing to excuse it. And they have some of the most dotish, dumb, ridiculous excuses for some of the utterances of these ministers. Things that they would not have allowed or given a pass to under the last administration. Small thing. Water off a duck's back. No point in making an issue of that. Right? And again, where are the letter writers? Where are the men and women of letters who would have raked Dr. Rowley over the coals for making statements where he would have likened a woman to a golf course? While one understands the point the Prime Minister was making is that women need to be treated with a certain level of care and by men. But they didn't see it that way. Okay. And other things that he would have said. And the same people who wasted no time to put out articles and commentary, whether it be on social media or the mainstream media, where are they today? Do you think it was okay for the Prime Minister to make that statement that the kidnapping of Mr. Tadi and his wife seems fishy? You are the head of the National Security Council. The assumption is made that you have access to information that others don't. So did you form this opinion based on information that you would have gotten from there? And do you think it was correct to make such a statement in public? Don't you think it was insensitive to the man's family and friends who are very concerned and worried about his well-being and that of his wife? But that's just par for the course, all right? Because Mrs. Prasad can get away with things that Dr. Rowley could not have, and members of the last administration could not have either. Case in point, we saw what happened in Parliament last week with respect to the Speaker's ruling on the three motions of privilege that would have been brought by members of the House. The motion of privilege that would have been brought by Colin Booth in respect of, the opposition with respect to the statement made by the Prime Minister to Mr. Imbert that she would cuff him in his head or cuff him down and inviting him to meet her outside. And the Speaker would have ruled on that, as well as the statement that was made by the Attorney General. Let me not say statement that was made if I'm to go based on what the Speaker said. What was reported that the Attorney General said. Right, go and take your little man or something like that. And having sat in the Parliament and listened to the Speaker's reasoning and his statement in respect to why he made the decision that he did, all I could think of is that the Speaker needs to send an invoice to the Attorney General for that spirited defense of the Attorney General. Most spirited defense. I mean, I could have sworn that I was in a courtroom. I said, what by? AG, even when you look at the expression on the AG's face while listening to the Speaker render his verdict and his judgment, it's even the AG seemed surprised. It was almost as if I couldn't have come up with a better defense myself. I swear that the AG probably wanted to bang the desk or give the Speaker a round of applause. So AG, you need to call the Speaker and tell him send you a bill, send you an invoice, right, for that most spirited defense. And then in the case of the Prime Minister, where the Speaker would have indicated that no, before I get there, the Speaker would have referenced the video recording or the audio of what the Attorney General would have said. And as he made the point, nobody would have made a formal complaint in respect of that. Who was it said to? We don't know, and all of that. And therefore, you cannot rely on simple audio that is on social media to make a judgment. But I recall when member for Borders Bay, North St. Anne's, where Stuart Young would have had his unfortunate hot mic scenario, where he would have made certain comments. In the same way, it was a voice that was heard, all right? And same audio that was heard on social media. The Speaker at the time, Bridget Anizet George, was not in the chamber, unlike what happened in this circumstance where Speaker Singh was in fact in the chamber when the Attorney General said what he said. And yet still, Stuart Young was reprimanded, yet still there were calls for him to resign because that is unparliamentary behavior and unbecoming of a minister of government to say such a thing. Loud calls from the UNC supporters, the hypocrites that they are, for Stuart Young to go. And Stuart Young had to resign and Rowley need to fire him and all of that if he doesn't resign. All of that based on what? Audio that was heard on social media. Somebody was listening on Parliament channel and then they recorded it and they put it out there. And the Speaker, Mr. Young, was made to apologize, and he did on 2 occasions. And then the Speaker, who at the time was not in the chamber when Mr. Young made his statement, I could say he made his statement because he did apologize, so he owned up to it, unlike the Attorney General, who sat in the Parliament, stone-faced like a wooden judge in a Ramgood session, right? And while the Speaker asked a number of questions, who was the comment directed to, if in fact it was said? And all the while the Speaker was saying that, those of us down on our end of the bench will say, well, look the Attorney General there, ask him. Look the man there, ask him who he was talking to, ask him if he said it. Let's see if he would deny it on the floor, right? Ask him who did he say it to, because there is some level of conflict as to whether he was speaking to Mr. Padirath or if he was speaking to Marvin Gonzalez. We ask him. You don't ask a general question, ask the Attorney General. And therein lies the fundamental difference. Stuart Young didn't do like the Attorney General in the face of this being all over the place and just remain quiet and said nothing and waiting for the 9 days to, the 9-day wonder to expire for that to be, old news. He man up, right? He owned up to what was said and he came and he apologized on 2 occasions. He apologized on social media, went on his Facebook page and he apologized in the Parliament and so on. He took ownership for what he said. But the AG sit down there and listening to the Speaker render his verdict. Of course, as I said, some of you all might not, because the camera would have been on the Speaker, so you wouldn't have seen the AG's expression on his face. And, he too seemed animated. It was like, wow. Yeah. So he said nothing in his own defense. He didn't deny it. He didn't own up to it. He didn't apologize. And after Stuart Young was called upon to apologize by many people, many of whom have chosen to remain silent in this instance, and I will keep referring to the hypocrisy of the UNC and their supporters, many of them who sit in the House, who would have been very critical of Stuart Young, but chose to say nothing because it's their colleague, right? If that isn't the epitome of hypocrisy, I don't know what is. But no credit, they will give no credit to Stuart Young for that. And you would have heard me on more than one occasion speak about how I personally found that Stuart Young, his repudiation by Speaker Bridget Anizet-George was, to me, extreme. When one looks at and recalls some of the words that she used to describe Stuart Young's behavior as reprehensible and repulsive and you name it, I have no problem with the Speaker coming in and saying, okay, look, this is right, XYZ. But her criticism was very pointed to Stuart Young, and she was very stern in her repudiation, in the choice of words, so much so that it did not escape people like Anil Roberts and others in the UNC who took to social media to talk about how the Speaker pulled up, excoriated Stuart Young to the extreme based on what? The same thing that existed in this instance. Audio recording, right? Same audio recording. Because the footage that you would have seen where you're hearing the AG saying whatever, there's video footage. Same way that there was video footage with Stuart Young. But the Speaker is saying, well, we cannot rely on that. Same situation, two different outcomes, right? The Speaker is saying, well, in the future, only behave well yourself now. Behave well yourself. Let us act more adult, right? Let us be more respectful of the Parliament chamber and the positions that we hold. All of this banter. So the situation between the Prime Minister and Minister Imbut, well, former Minister Imbut, member for Diego Martin, Northeast, where the Speaker said, well, no, it was just banter. Playful banter, you know. Prime Minister meant nothing by it. And the fact that even if Mr. Imbut took offense to what the Prime Minister said, that in totality is irrelevant. His interpretation of what the Prime Minister said was irrelevant. Right? Does not matter. And would not have figured prominently in his deliberation as to whether or not the Prime Minister would have or should have been sent before the Privileges Committee for an infraction of the standing orders. Right? So it's okay. And I made the point before, and I said it, and I raised the issue during the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association training last week when we were discussing the issue of gender in the Parliament. You know, the men and the women. Or do you believe that the men have an advantage over the women in politics? And I made the point. I said, I think to some extent, women have an advantage because if the situation had been reversed and Colm Imbut had said to the Prime Minister, don't point at me. And the Prime Minister had said, why not? And Mr. Imbut had said, I'll cough in your head. The public response would have been totally different, right? So a woman saying it, as opposed to a man saying it, totally different. The response from the public, totally different. So it's okay for a woman to say that to a man, I'll cough in your head. But if a man says, oh Lord, abuse. And even the facts as presented by the leader of government business, Barry Perarat, in terms of what happened, it's totally false. Talking about how throughout the sitting, Mr. Imbut had been, verbally molesting the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was absent from a significant portion of the sitting, as she normally is. She comes in at certain points in time. If she has a statement to make, if it's Prime Minister's question time, you would have seen she wasn't even in the chamber when it came time for Prime Minister's questions, and therefore we had to defer that portion of the agenda for the day until the Prime Minister arrived. So for him to say there was constant, there was none of that. And then the Speaker, in his deliberation and in his statement, claimed that Mr. Imbut would have, that Mr. Imbut had told the Prime Minister to meet him outside. The Prime Minister responded and meet her outside and so on and the like. And it's truly what happened was unfortunate. But it's part for the course, I suppose. There were so many claims about Bridget Anizet-George being biased. Maybe something with the chair. I don't know. But just putting that out there. So I saw Stuart Young put out a statement, I think it was yesterday. in response to, let me just get this here. So, in response to a video that came out showing clips from the end of year function, Christmas function for the office of the Prime Minister. Let's see if I pull this up here. And Barry Padarath, taking offense, decided to respond to Stuart via a video. Now, let me just read for you exactly what Stuart Young said, because I listened to Anil Roberts. He finally did his doubles and coffee. Took him long to respond, in fact. I'm surprised. He's probably needed a little time to sober up. Maybe he wasn't sober enough yesterday to do his doubles and coffee. Because they have a lot of Christmas parties taking place and they get invited to all sorts of things. So when you overdo, probably can't get up 6 o'clock in the morning to do a doubles and coffee, at least not one in a sober head. And when he overdoes it, right? We saw that video with him Carnival last year when he didn't even know himself, as they say, pistoratically drunk. Anil. And 5 times he had to hear his name called, and somebody calling everybody, turn around. Hey, how you going? Yeah? So he was probably in one of those situations, so he couldn't respond. So he was only able to respond 5 hours ago, right? More than 24 hours later. But this is what Stuart said. For those of you who missed it, right, who may not be on Facebook, and I'm not aware of what Stuart said, but you might have seen the video of Mr. Padarath on the evening news. Must have been a slow news day. The UNC government has fired tens of thousands of our most vulnerable citizens who depended on employment in CPEP, URP, reforestation, HDC, and other contract positions throughout the public service since coming into office. The same government instructed that ministries and state companies reduce expenditure, and numerous companies, including those that actually make money via profit, example, NGC and Heritage, have cancelled their end-of-year activities for staff. Yet, there are some in government who seem not to have received the memo, as they are having extravagant, vulgar, and expensive functions and parties, rubbing their contempt and disregard in the faces of those who at this time do not even know where their next meal will come from. I condemn these actions of the UNC government and the pain that they have intentionally and heartlessly inflicted on tens of thousands, and ask that we remember and do whatever we can to assist those who may be in need at this time. May God bless Trinidad and Tobago in continued service. Stuart R. Young, SCMP, December 13, 2025. Right, that's what Stuart said. Nowhere in there does Stuart mention anything about doubles, about bacon shack, about corn soup. No mention of that, right? What he did post to accompany his statement were 4 pictures. So it's a collage of 4 pictures. 3 of which it appears from the Christmas luncheon that was held at the Diplomatic Center under the office of the Prime Minister, right? Well, 4 of those pictures actually, and there is 5 pictures from the luncheon that was held, I think, on Friday, and there is 1 picture with Mr. Padarath and Parliamentary Secretary Shavana Sam at the Ministry of Public Utilities Christmas event, which seems to have been held at Millefleur. I'm sure many of you would have seen the video of Mr. Padarath having had a doubles, and he's licking his fingers and so on, showing his approval for how tasty the doubles was. Let me see if I get this here. So that was Stuart Young's position, right? And the point that Stuart was making had nothing to do with him having an issue with Christmas parties or staff luncheons or end-of-year functions being held for public servants. The issue was that the government sent out a communique indicating to all and sundry within the public service, in the public sector, to either scale down or to avoid having these parties altogether. And yet still, we are seeing that certain ministries are having, and others are not, and other state agencies and state enterprises that are accustomed having these events, something that the staff looks forward to every year. They did not have it. So is it that it's one rule for one and one for the next? And then how can you, in the face of having sent home tens of thousands of persons on the claim that you don't have money. We hear about corruption. The government needs to cut back on expenditure, and this government is not going to do like the last administration and waste money on things such as this, and therefore you are having it. So that was the point that Stuart was seeking to make. So when I heard Mr. Roberts and Mr. Paderat coming on social media and making these ridiculous statements and trying to play smart with foolishness, I simply had to respond, and Stuart needs no help from me to defend. He could do that on his own. All right? Let me just see if I get this here. Just let me get this here. Where is it? Where is it? I just wanted to play what Mr. Paderat said. I need to find this thing here. All right, just give me 1 second. Let me try and find this. For those of you who may not have heard it. Wait a minute. Can always depend on them to post these things. Right. All right, just give me 1 second there, folks. Somebody keeps calling me and I don't know why.
Parliament for Port of Spain North, Mr. Stuart Young, where he posted photographs of myself and MP Shavana Sam eating doubles, describing it as having lavish and vulgar parties. I want to tell the member that the doubles that I was eating, I paid for it out of my own pocket for all 200 employees at the Ministry of Public Utilities. If I wanted to eat 5 or I wanted to eat 10 doubles, I paid for it without taxpayers' money. And therefore, I think I'm entitled to. The honourable member has a penchant for being abrasive and disgusting towards public servants. All we sought to do was utilize the resources that we already have in ministries and state enterprises. And therefore, no money was paid to any artist to perform at the office of the Prime Minister or the Ministry of Public Utilities at the event. Instead, what we sought to do was to ask them, seeing that they were already brand ambassadors for TSCT, and they graciously agreed. And I want you to know that I'm very, very grateful, artists, for those free performances. But I'm also apologizing on the behalf of the member for Port of Spain North for bringing you into disrepute in this most disgusting and vile way. Because these artists were not hired at TSCT as brand ambassadors by myself. They were hired under People's National Movement Administration, and they have been there for a number of years. All we simply asked was whether or not they would perform for us without cost, and they agreed to graciously do so. I thank them once more, and I apologize to them on behalf of the member for Port of Spain North, Mr. Stuart Young, for this blatant attack that goes unwarranted. For several of these events that we have had during the season, ministers of government have dipped into their own pocket. I don't know what the problem is that this former administration has with bacon, shark, and doubles and pilau, but those are the things that we served at some of our events. And therefore, today, I really call on Stuart Young to apologize without having the facts, without having the knowledge, without having the know-it-all. But this continued, sustained attacks on public servants in particular is nothing new. The member describes these events as vulgar and lavish. I just want to say to the honourable member and to the former administration, vulgar and lavish is when family members get millions of dollars in state contracts. Vulgar and lavish is when you and your family have blue lights and security 24/7, while Trinbagonians have to fight up out there against the criminal elements which we are now dealing with. So, member for Port of Spain North and all of Trinidad and Tobago, you drove me to put together this video to clarify issues that you have now put in public domain. but you have done so with an attempt to scandalize and politicize public servants and innocent persons. Next time, simply ask a question or keep your mouth shut. Thank you.
But we know that this.
So I read for you all what Stuart Young said. Stuart mentioned nothing about doubles, as I said, nothing about Bacon Shop, Anna Roberts. He mentioned nothing about alcohol. He mentioned nothing about any artist. He called no artist's name or anything like that. So when Mr. Padarath and Mr. Roberts want to come and play smart with foolishness, all right? I don't know how you all came to that deduction that Stuart was scandalizing and criticizing the public servants. No, he was standing in defense of those public servants who have not, well, not just public servants, but government workers who are accustomed to having their end of year function that they look forward to and did not get it because of instructions that came from the state. All right? So not everybody, the workers who didn't get, I don't think they were invited to the office of the Prime Minister on Friday or whenever for that function. And for you to make mention about, these artists who were hired as brand ambassadors under TSTT, not under the UNC, but under the PNM. So we're trying to say there was something wrong with that, something untoward with them being retained as brand ambassadors under TSTT. Well, if something was wrong with, because that's the only reason I could see you wanting to mention that. So you're saying, well, because they're brand ambassadors and well, they're already getting money from TSTT, what is it for them to come on and perform? Because other than that, how else do they serve as brand ambassadors? What exactly does a brand ambassador do? Because if they're getting money, if being a brand ambassador gives you receive some sort of remuneration on a regular basis from B-Mobile, TSTT, what do they do for that money? But again, Stuart didn't criticize that. So you're on foolishness. But you see, when you felt you needed to respond and you have nothing to respond to, but out of thine own mouth comes thy judgment. Because as you said, scandalous and vulgar is when family members receive millions of dollars in contracts. You said it, eh? Not me. You said it. I just repeated what you said. So based on your explanation, scandalous and vulgar is when family members receive $1 million contracts. Let me see here. Let me read from this article. Right, and I'm reading here from this article entitled Padarath and Relative Face Financial Probes, 2020. All right, let me just read this here. A money trail tracked by authorities revealed that during the period 2013 to 2018, just over $15 million passed through the accounts of the relatives' company, Mr. Padarath's relatives. Right? He said, scandalous and vulgar is when family members get millions of dollars in contracts. And I am reading from this article, which came out of an interview that Mark Bassant would have done with Mr. Padarath while he was on the campaign trail in 2020. And you all would have seen the video on the news where he would have been asked questions with respect to certain checks that were paid, the $135,000 in checks that he would have gave to the Prime Minister, deposited to her account, and he couldn't remember what that money was for. And other questions, certain checks that would have been issued in his name by certain relatives. And he said, if you look at the date, you would see it was my birthday, but it's 2 checks with different dates. So apparently, like the Queen of England, he celebrates his birthday on 2 different days. I'm reading here. Documentation revealed that for the period January 15, 2014, 2026, January 15, 2014 to January 26, 2017, the sum of $162,500 was allegedly paid to Padarath via checks from the relatives' company. There were 3 checks for $50,000, $10,000, $2,500 during that period, all paid on different dates for the 3-year period. When questioned on this payment, Padarath smiled and said, my only comment to you is that I am an only child. And if you look at the date of those checks, it was my birthday, and it was totally above board, and there is a clear attempt to sully my name. Money trail tracked by authorities revealed that during the period 2013 to 2018, just over $15 million passed through the accounts of the relatives' company, Mr. Padarath's relative. Incidentally, under the People's Partnership, the company owned by Mr. Padarath and his relative, the company obtained contracts from the EFCL and Palo Seco Agricultural Enterprises Limited in the sum of $3.2 million between the period 2012 to 2015. Documents obtained by investigators reveal that the relatives' company secured 9 contracts through PSAEL during the period April 2012 to 2015. Investigators found that 4 of the 9 contracts were awarded to the company through a merit award system. They also discovered in January 2011, Rentokil Initial Limited tendered a bid to furnish, install, and serve soap dispensers at Petrotrin's offices in Pointe-à-Pitre after there was an invitation to tender by PSAEL. They discovered that the contract was granted to the relatives' company, notwithstanding Rentokil Initial Limited, which has the ability to perform a similar task, tendered a much lower quote. Investigators also noted there were 2 instances where, based on the tendering process, selection using the lowest bidder criteria, the service providers recommended were not awarded the contract. Right? Based on the tendering process, the service providers who were recommended by the tender committee, they were not awarded the contracts. Investigators added that Padarat's relatives' company was awarded the contract by the Finance and Tenders Committee, notwithstanding the fact that the bid was doubled the amount quoted by the other service providers. The EFCL also awarded at least 20 contracts to the relatives' company between September 2011 to September 2014. In some instances, investigators say they were unable to say if the work was done on some of the schools that the company was given the contract for, and stated that at least 5 projects in one way or the other does not contain the relevant payment information. Padarat was also asked about a $703,000 payment made to his relative's account and the ongoing police investigation into his salary when he was the Prime Minister's aide, and the inconsistencies in the amounts deposited over the period 2013 to 2017 into his personal account. So even his salary that he was receiving at that time. So was that scandalous based on your words, Barry? It seems you were engaging in scandalous and vulgar activities between 2010 to 2015. Millions of dollars being paid to relatives. I ain't hearing you, Barry. You spoke about scandalous and vulgar as, having blue lights, flashing blue lights while the rest of the country is at the mercy of the criminal element. But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you, Khadija, and Wayne Sturge receive security recently because of your decision to cancel the CPEP program? Wasn't it reported that you all needed extra security? Your lives were in danger? You didn't get no blue lights? You don't have police protection? But that is what was reported. So was that scandalous and vulgar, Barry, based on your definition of what scandalous and vulgar is? I am just asking. Maybe you could help me out a little bit. Because both of the things that you identified as being scandalous and vulgar apply to you, sir. So maybe you need to check yourself next time before you come on social media to respond and end up making a complete fool of yourself. I will use fool. There are other words I could use, but I want to keep it podcast friendly. So just putting that out there. I'm not going to comment too much on your partner, right? That bald-headed buffoon. Okay, that quintessential rum cork. The less said about him, the better, because he has his own issues to deal. He wants to come and talk nonsense about referring to Stuart Young as normal as small pen and recusals. Going back again to this nonsense is that every time you listen to a contribution from that clown in the Senate, it's the same thing he keep coming to talk about. Recusal, this, that. Speak to the issue that is being debated. Tell us about what you do in the ministry on a daily basis, other than waste public's time and money to do lives cussing the PNM and members of the PNM. What else do you do in the ministry? We don't even, at least we see Philip Alexander from time to time. What do you do? We have not seen you at a ribbon cutting. We don't even see you at functions, meetings being held in the ministry. We don't see you anywhere. The only time people see your face is when you're in the parliament, in the Senate, showing the world that you're an idiot, a clown and a buffoon, or when we see you on Doubles and Coffee. So we don't know. And the only time we see you in your office is when you decide you have nothing to do other than bite your nails and whatever else you do in your office. You have some time on your hands, so you decide to, when you're in your office, you have some time on your hands to do another Doubles and Coffee from your office. The office that we, the taxpayers, are paying for. PNM people pay taxes too, right? Contrary to popular belief that exists among the UNC, there are PNM supporters of the PNM who have good jobs and who make money, plenty money, and who pay taxes as well. All right? So it is our taxpayers' money that paying you, paying Philip Alexander. You all have nothing better to do than to make live whole day. Philip, you going outside and do it. Right? But that's all you all do. Never hear you all do, see you all do a live to talk about what is going on in the ministry that you work in. The ministry that you all earn over $70,000 a month for. Not once would you all do a single live to show, hey, I'm earning my keep. The money that you all pay me, this is what I do to earn it. You know why you don't do that? Because you do nothing. You serve no useful purpose. And again, to repeat Philip Edward Alexander, his words, I feel greatly underutilized. But he has no problem when at the end of the month, he opens his bank account on his online banking, or he goes to the bank and puts his bank card into the ATM and he sees his slip come out and his salary is there. Right? The tens of thousands of dollars. The salary that could have paid 30 CPAP workers for the month. When he sees that there, he has no problem with being greatly underutilized. When he jumps in his brand new Land Cruiser that costs probably $1 million+, that some of you all who voted for him, and every time when you see Philip, you're awestruck. Oh God, Philip, I love you. Philip, you know how long I want to meet you. I could kiss you, Philip. Right? And after all of that fawning and wanting to kiss his foot and whatever other part of his anatomy that you may be inclined to kiss, rain pouring, you had to go out and face the rain, but guess what? He jump in his $1 million Land Cruiser and he gone home. He leave you there. And you might be standing up at the side of the road waiting for Maxi and your flag, and now Maxi and he passed bush and wet you down, and he couldn't care less. You feel he remember that he just met you in the mall or wherever it is. Well, I say the mall because he loves to frequent West Mall, as I am told by a few people that I know who work in the mall, and they told me he always there. Probably spends more time there than he does in the ministry, where he should be. All right? But these two clowns, that's all they have time to do. So again, we'll come again, Mr. Padarath. Stuart was not making any issue with the artists, with doubles, with Bacon Shark, or any other thing that you all provided. Because was there alcohol served at these events? You paid for that too? You only made mention of the doubles. Yes, if you want 5, you want 10, you could eat because you paid for it. For 200 staff members, how much money that cost you? Probably less than $5,000. All right? But what about the other things that were served? There's only doubles you all served at those events? No other types of food? There's no alcohol? Everybody was what? Lining up to drink from the tap? You all bring a hose? Everybody, you're thirsty, bring your glasses. We're going to have a toast. Bring your glasses and bring the hose. That's all they drank, right? Or you got sponsorship for bottled water. No alcohol was there. No other types of drink. No other type of food. Only doubles and water. No coffee. All right? Who paid for those other things? Was there any alcohol served at the Prime Minister's residence? Which alcohol you all use? The ones that you shoved out in the cart, in the trolley, when you all first won and you went to the office of the Prime Minister? Is that alcohol still there? Is there anything left from that, or has that been used up? Because the number of functions that you all have had at the diplomatic center since you came into office by far surpasses what the PNM would have had. But yet still, last year's budget, all they complained, $50 million for entertainment under the office of the Prime Minister, money for Rowley to wine and dine and so on. How much wining and dining did Rowley do? How much? I could tell you, Rowley didn't host any event at the diplomatic center to wine and dine the 1%, as you all would have done quite recently. The same 1% that you cost black as white for the last 10 years. The same 1% that has the PNM in their back pocket. How much of the $50 million that let's say was allocated to the office of the Prime Minister for entertainment did Rowley spend? Should be easy for you all to give us those figures, but you all never mentioned it. If $50 million was spent, you all would come and tell us, they spent $50 million. Who are they to speak? Stuart was merely saying that it is what was vulgar is the fact that you have denied thousands of people employment. Persons who, at the same time last year, when the PNM was still in office, were gainfully employed. Right? You could argue that maybe their salary wasn't all that great, but at least they were able to pay some bills and they were able to enjoy a decent Christmas. There is one man who is not with his family this year. He was with them last year. Why is he not with them this year? Because he took his own life, because the government of which you were a part took his job. The job of both him and his wife. Both of them working the same place, forestry. You took both of their jobs. and left their family in financial peril. And he couldn't take it, not being able to provide for his family, having lost his job, looking for jobs all over the place, and it just wasn't coming because he had to compete with tens of thousands of others of similar circumstance who are now unemployed because of you and your government. That when UNC wins, everybody wins. Yellow is the code. Right? So this is his children's first Christmas without him. His wife's first Christmas without him since they were married. Bleak Christmas. Even if she got another job and she could provide good food and pay the bills and buy gifts for her children, there's one critical element that is missing that will never, no amount of money could ever fix that or bring it back. And that is the fact that her husband is now deceased. Her children's father is deceased. And he will not be coming back. Not now, not ever. Okay? And who did that? Who was responsible for that? Not the PNM, not Stuart Young, not the actions of the PNM and Stuart Young. It's the actions of your government. This loving, caring, benevolent government. You all drove this man to kill himself. All right? All those persons who in the last 3-4 months have been going to groceries and stealing stuff because they can't afford to feed their families. They can't afford to buy milk for the young children. And the callous and insensitive supporters of the UNC who wanting to defend the foolishness of the administration that they support. Because I say, if you know you couldn't mind the children, what you make it for? You should have spent money and buy rubbers and buy condom. And all you know what they can't mind children don't make. Well, up until the end of June, these people were able to walk into a grocery and pick up Enfamil and pick up Clem and Milo and Ovaltine and go to the cashier and pay for it. They didn't have to be looking sideways and stick things down their pants and walk out the grocery store. Or, as I saw recently in St. James, pull up outside a grocery and wait for people to come outside with their bags and jump out the car, snatch the bags and jump back in. Stealing groceries out of people's hands. They weren't doing that this time last year. So, because they had jobs. And the very thing that you all criticize and vilify the PNM for seeking to extend the CPEP contracts for a further 3 years to ensure that these people would not find themselves in this very situation that they find themselves in today. And you disbanded CPEP on the guise of its corruption and its corruption. And again, I ask the question, when you all have office day, if you have office day, because I understand some of you all, no matter how hard your constituents try, they can't see you. Some of them are now being told, well, the earliest appointment you could get to see your MP is in February next year. We're in December, but you can't see the MP until February next year. I say, I had to be doing something wrong because I see people every week. Nobody calls my office and hears, well, you had to wait until February or 2026 to see the MP. Nobody does that. You call my office, all right, we put on your name, right. If not this week, next week. Okay? And if it means that I have to do a second day for the week to see persons, no problem. Sometimes I stop by my office on days that are not office days and somebody just happened to see me going into the office and they decided, let me come and see if I could get an opportunity to speak to the MP. I ain't not going to turn them out and say, come. One time, yesterday, I was invited to a hamper distribution in Samaru Village. Right? I made the time. I had a lot of stuff to do yesterday in preparation for the children's party today, but I made the time and I went. I engaged in the distribution of the hampers and so on. And a lot of people who were there seized on the opportunity to have a discussion with me about certain issues that they are having. I told them, fortunately, my field officer was there, and I told them, here, take the people's information, take their names, their numbers, what is their issue, and I will follow up on it. And they were very happy. So I had office day outside of office day. But some of these UNC MPs, non-existent. All right? And again, I'm asking the question. You all don't have former CPEP and URP workers coming to you all to every week as they come to me, asking for help to find for jobs, asking for assistance to pay their rent, asking for assistance to buy food, or to send the children to school. You all don't get that. Is it that people are afraid to come to you all? I had to ask the question. I don't know. I probably didn't get a memo that this is how you operate as an MP, not how I do it. But anyway, I digress. In the interest of time, is already 2:07. I probably have another 10 minutes. So there was two other things I wanted to touch on. So I saw there was a situation last week, where a certain contractor, road paving contractor, decided to put up a wall at the roundabout in Diego Martin. For those of you who may not be familiar with Diego Martin, there's a roundabout just outside West Mall, right? And constructed by the last administration. And it appears that this contractor was seeking to put up a wall to put advertising on the wall. I can't understand for the life of me. I'm no engineer, but simple common sense, basic common sense will tell you that makes no sense, because if you put up this wall, it's going to block the view of vehicles coming around the roundabout, and it could cause accidents. Right? Because sometimes I use that roundabout frequently, right? Because my company that I work for, right, the head office is down in that way. So when I go down there often, and I coming around, yeah. So there are some real dotish drivers sometimes who apparently need to get lessons in how to drive at a roundabout. So if you put up that wall there, you're looking for problems. And the member of parliament for Diego Martin West, in whose constituency the roundabout falls, would have done a live appealing to residents and constituents of Diego Martin West to let their voices be heard in respect of that, because I think at the time they were still trying to figure out who gave the approvals for the construction of this wall or whatever it is. And no sooner had the member for Diego Martin West done his video, the silhouette, I wouldn't even call him the shadow, the silhouette for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West, Philip Edward Alexander, right? The man who wanted to be the MP and was roundly and soundly rejected by the majority of the electorate in that constituency, decided to do a live to chastise and castigate the member for Diego Martin West, whose responsibility it is to treat with those issues. So let me just play for you what he had to say. All right?
Yes, people, I heard this lady makes roti from her house.
Where is he?
We're just calling you to tell you.
It's a little bit.
Right, so this is Philip Edward Alexander. I am here to update you with all of the truth of everything you need to know about what took place on this roundabout. And I saw the member of parliament for Diego Martin West come to try and milk it and get some points for this. But he was late. I'll tell you why he was late. Yesterday evening, a wall started to be constructed here and my phone rang up like a Christmas tree. So we did some follow-ups and I called the Minister of Transport, Eli Zakur, the Honorable Eli Zakur, who responded immediately. Between him and the Honorable Minister Geraldine John, things were put in place to stop the work that was taking place on the roundabout. This morning, the Diego Martin Regional Corporation came. They themselves was clueless as to what was taking place. This morning, myself, a lot of people would have passed and seen me on the roundabout. The Minister of Transport, Eli Zakur, and the technical advisor to the Minister of Works, they were both here. They issued a stop order. And if you look now, you will see all the walls are gone. So I want to tell Diego Martin West and Trinidad as a whole, don't take on PNM stunting. PNM had nothing to do with this wall coming down. The only reason it almost stayed up 24 hours is because, like everything to do with the madness of this poorly designed roundabout that causes accidents every day, that has 4 roads police stations saying since this roundabout opened, they're full time taking reports of accidents from this roundabout. I want you to hear me because you all have been hearing me on this roundabout from the very start. We are going to fix it. We are going to get it done, and I know the Minister of Transport is on top of that. But I want you to know this, and I want you to share this everywhere. No matter what the PNM tried to take credit for, it is the government of the day under the Minister of Works and Transport. The Minister of Works and the Minister of Transport together worked on this to get this wall removed. That is fixing it. That is everybody winning. That is real representation. If the PNM was in office still, you'd have lived with this wall. Rowley would have stripped at you. Shorten would have told you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Don't take on PNM and the foolishness. All of a sudden they have a voice.
And that's what you taxpayers are paying for. When he should be in the Ministry of Housing, doing his work as minister, not as parliamentary secretary, as minister, that he getting over $70,000 a month for. He has time to go down at the roundabout during the day, all right, because he has nothing else to do live, to cuss Hans and the PNM and talk about PNM stunting. But this is UNC pep stunting at its best. That's how he does it. So he went there. Now, how do we know he's lying? Well, first of all, his lips are moving every time he opens his mouth, because he, just like the rest of them, damn liar. So he says, well, Hans is late. The MP is late because last night his phone was ringing up like a Christmas tree. I don't know Christmas trees as ring, but anyway, his phone was ringing up like a Christmas tree, and he called Eli Zakur and whatnot. Everybody knows who knows Philip Alexander, probably everybody, what his modus operandi is, how he operates. Because if what he was saying is true, or is untrue, we know that. Because every time he gets this call, he wants to be the first on the scene, right? News before the news. He lives in Diego Martin. So he would have been by that roundabout, whatever hour the night, to do exactly what he just did there. In the daytime, he would have done that since Wednesday night. Or at the very least, or worse than that, if not Wednesday night, let's say he was busy, family time or whatever. The next morning, he would have wanted to get there at that roundabout to get the jump on Hans and everybody else so that he could say he was the one, it was brought to his attention and he is here, Philip will fix it, and so he's treating with it urgently. Because the day before, he did a live on TikTok, wherever else he does it, at about 5 o'clock in the morning. He was leaving the gym at Starlight Plaza, talking about this early, leaving the gym here under the cover of darkness, and so it's still dark outside, and I'm just leaving the gym and so on. But that hour in the morning, he felt he needed to do a live to cost the PNM so early in the morning, right? And this roundabout is just around the corner from where his gym is. So knowing him, either before he went to the gym on Thursday morning or after he went to the gym, he would have gone across to that roundabout, set up his tripod, and done the same live that he just did there so he could get the jump on Stuart. Not Stuart, sorry. You're always on Stuart back. He could get the jump on Hans and on Aquila Glasgow, who is the mayor for the PNM mayor, for the PNM Control Corporation, Diego Martin. To make sure that none of them come at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock to do a live and beat him to it. It was brought to my attention and I addressed it immediately. None of that happened. The first live that he did to treat with in respect of this issue was after Hans had passed through and he probably was going through Facebook, sit down in his office. Well, let me see if I pass through, at least show my face for half an hour so they can't say I didn't come to the office today. And then I'll probably go to the mall. Or maybe he was on his way to the mall, as is the norm. His second office, or should I say his first office, is West Mall. Spends more time there than he spends in his office. So he would have gone and done a live there to talk about that and let you know what he did, that he would have spoken to Eli and spoken to whoever else. And this is what is in place, that and whatnot and stuff. And he is fixing it. He's addressing the issue because he would have gotten calls. That is what he would have done. That's how he operates. And the fact that none of that happened, no live Wednesday, none Thursday morning, right, tells you clearly all what he tell you he did there, nothing of the sort. In fact, there is video footage that was put up by the mayor for Diego Martin, Aquila Glasgow owner, where she and the minister, Eli Zakur, are on site by the roundabout, having discussions and so on. She would have done a subsequent live to tell us what their discussions was about, what Mr. Zakur said, and all of that, and the actions. As she would, and he couldn't, what he said there made no sense, because even if you call Jolene John and you called Eli Zakur, the Diego Martin Corporation still has power to be able to grant permission. So I don't understand how you could come to a conclusion because you call Eli and you call Jolene, but you didn't call the mayor. You called nobody from the Diego Martin Corporation to find out if they gave permission. Because if they gave permission and then other authorities come to knock down the wall or to demolish it, then you open yourself up to a lawsuit because the persons had permission so to do. So I don't understand how you could come to make a determination without consulting the Diego Martin Regional Corporation. When it was brought to the attention of the mayor came. She was on site on at least 2 occasions, and subsequent to that, the wall came down, all of the material was removed, and all is well once again. But of course, as I said, this buffoon number 2, this attention seeker, this wannabe Syrian, this counterfeit 1%er, never misses a beat, never misses an opportunity talk about Philip will fix it. Everything he will fix. Last week, Sunday, I was going to a concert in Queen's Hall. The Marionettes had their Christmas concert. And I was stuck in traffic by Queen's Royal College, which was, for those of you from Port of Spain know that Queen's Hall is just around the corner from there, for about 20 minutes, because this idiot decided to have a Christmas concert or a children's Christmas party in Wildflower Park, right by the Marval roundabout there. And one set of police, there was also a 5K taking place, right? But people wanting to cross the road to get to and from his waste of time Christmas party because he's trying to show up Stuart Young, right? And his Christmas tree lighting exercise and so on, of all places. So the police had to be constantly stopping traffic for people to cross the road to and from. And traffic backed up all the way around the savannah. And I there waiting because it's almost 6 o'clock and I was in time, time meeting perfectly, trying to get there. And I vexed trying to see what the hell going on here. What just reach up to the roundabout only to realize this moron that probably had about 20 people, right? Invited everybody from Port of Spain, North St. Anne's, West come through. But of course, if you have a murder constituency, we're not going to turn it on. If 20 people, he had 20 people, he had plenty. Right? Inconveniencing people. Because of his obsession with Wildflower Park and the fight that he has with Azar and whoever else who live in there and all of that. But apparently that's what he's getting paid for. Right? That's what he gets paid to do. To inconvenience people. But let me just play this here quickly. Because I look at the time and so many other things I need to talk about the Moody's downgrade, right? Because of our Forex situation. By the way, supporters of the UNC, you all getting foreign exchange in the bank? You could get 200 US in the bank? Well, let me know how to do that now, because I went to the bank last week, trying to get not 200, just 100. And I couldn't get it. Right? You reach too late. If you're not here by, the bank opens at 8 o'clock, and if you're not here by 8 o'clock and 30 seconds, hard luck. Check us back in 2 days. Okay? I was just asking for 100 salt. So when you are saying you could get 200, is all you get, all the bank giving you is 200. Let me know where and what time I could go and how I could get 2 now. I didn't want 2, I just wanted 1. And I went to 2 different banks. Just putting that out there for you. Because it's been 8 months and they had all the answers. The cartel, the Forex cartel. May I ask you something? The 1% get in the last 8 months, have they gotten less foreign exchange? All the cartels, the car companies, the new car companies, they're getting less foreign exchange? Has the problem been fixed? They fired Dukaran's son from the Exim Bank. Right? Say he incompetent, can't do the job. Has the problem been solved? I don't know. I don't usually go to the bank to buy US cash. I said when I travel, I use my credit card. If I need to get foreign exchange in cash, I just put my card in the ATM over there and I can get through. But in this instance, it's a good friend of mine happens to be traveling, and I just wanted to give them 100 US, just so let's spend the money now. Young child, right? But my friend's daughter is traveling, her first time. So I said, let me just give her something to, So, but just making it any easier. But the same people that was complaining about who getting all the US, Seems to me for the last 8 months they've been getting the US. But just coming back, I forgot that I wanted to play this, right? This is someone.
Do as I say and not as I do. We have
an ordinary citizen who feels the same way that Stuart does, right? With respect to the Christmas parties and so. Let me let him say.
Office of the Prime Minister Christmas luncheon. But I thought we broken and we ain't spending no money. I thought we don't have money for these things. I thought we was curbing the spending by state entities on Christmas celebrations. Because as I recall, the government is tightening spending and several state entities have now cancelled their Christmas and end of year functions. Heritage Petroleum has already scrapped its December 10th staff event. Sources say National Energy and NGC won't be hosting any either. UTT was officially instructed on December 5th not to use state funds for Christmas or end of year celebrations, with the minister citing the country's economic challenges and need for prudent financial management. I really don't have a problem with the Christmas parties. I have no problem with the Christmas parties because after working hard whole year, I understand, you just want a little appreciation, that kind of, yeah, but they do something for you. If it's not good for the goose, right, why it good for the gander? A couple of days ago, I see a video with a guy eating some doubles, finger licking good, right? But no Christmas party for everybody else. Basically, what they're telling me is my world and all just living in it. That is what's going on. We just living in your world. I understand. I am sorry for being disrespected. Paying for all these performers, all the big dogs and them was already, it was a swinging event. That was prudent spending. That's what we call prudent spending. Or they could avoid all this and just invite me and I would have never say nothing. So they don't do as I say and not as I do. We have.
That's an ordinary citizen, Barry. Right? That's not Stuart Young, and I don't know if he's paying him. But we didn't pay him to say that, right? And his TikTok handle is the boy that your mother warned you about. So since we cussing people who criticizing your end of year Christmas function, you could probably do another video. You could cuss him and cuss me too. All right? Neither here nor there with me. Well, it could cuss me too. The last thing I want to touch on, this program that they announced, right? Well, they didn't really announce it because it was leaked. A cabinet note that was taken to cabinet last week, Thursday, with respect to, I think, the supporters of the UNC, perhaps even the financiers. They probably, the state of the country with the high bush all over the place finally starting to get to them, it seems. So they probably tell them, hey, you need to do something. It seems CPEP wasn't as useless as you all may have made it out to be or you thought it was. So we need to do something because see all this high bush. Places before look so nice driving on the highway. You gotta be taking your time because this bush so high, you never know. You could stop at a traffic light and just the bush on the median alone, you could have two thieves hiding in the bush and they could jump out, hit you, two slap and take your car. So we need to get it fixed. So they came up with this brilliant plan to create a program with the acronym PUPS, P-U-P-S, right? PUPS, the irony. Program for the upkeep of public spaces. And they insist on this is not CPEP. Okay? It's not CPEP. So how exactly it's going to work, we're still not certain as yet. But all we know is that people were, it's supposed to be starting, I think, on Tuesday. Now, I can tell you that this program, so first of all, it said it's a pilot program for 13 weeks. The particulars, we still don't know. We as the members of the opposition, we don't know. We were just called and asked to submit 2 names. Right. 2. So I hear something about it will have a team of 12 people. I really don't understand. So don't ask me. I have no information on how it's going to work exactly. All right. All we know, the cabinet knows that they're going to get X amount of money per day and whatnot. They will cost of living allowance and all of that. And it's a pilot project, so we could only assume that based on how it works, they will determine whether or not the amount of people who would have been used for this pilot is sufficient to continue the program, or if they will need to roll it out on a larger scale. I have no idea. Okay. But the amount of people that will be hired under this pilot project is nowhere close to the number of persons who have lost their jobs, who were previously employed with CPEP. We have no idea how many of them, or how many former CPEP workers are going to be employed, if any at all. But last thing I want to play for. Yes, no.
I keep telling this boy guy Griffin.
Yes, no. So Mr. Put your size 13 in your mouth as usual. Never misses a beat, never misses an opportunity, right, to comment on things that he knows nothing about. Will never speak on what is happening in the ministry to which he's been assigned, but always have running commentary on everybody else, what's going on in everybody else's ministry. So listen to him. This one short.
Right. This one will destroy the PNM. The government is restarting a program similar to the intent of CPEP, but without the layers of corruption.
First of all, you cannot restart the program because this is a new program. So it's not restarting, so it's starting. All right? Yes, I'm being petty. But oh gosh, come good now. Let's go.
That the PNM did. So no more friends, family, financiers, wives, children, sons, daughters, friends, boyfriends, girlfriends getting contracts to use poor people. So look out for that. All of the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people that the PNM keep talking about that out of work, all of them going to be gainfully employed. But without PNM ministers and members of parliament using the program to thief money.
Right, so you all heard him there, right? He said all of the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people that the PNM talking about will be gainfully employed under this program. This program that is supposed to start on Tuesday. This pilot program that is running for 13 weeks. He just said all of the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people at the PNM will be employed under this program. Okay? Right. Gainfully employed. So it's not just CPEP. Based on what he just said, it's not just CPEP workers, URP workers, forestry workers. Everybody else who lost their work under this government for the last 8 months will be gainfully employed under this program. He said that. Right? If you ain't sure and you're on TikTok, just go and pull him up. And it is there. So my question to him is this how you all intend to, because remember CPEP, separate from URP, thousands of workers. So you're going to hire, you're telling me that you're going to hire 70,000 people to clean the country. The Prime Minister said that CPEP and URP was turning the country into a nation of grass cutters. But you're going to hire 70,000 grass cutters, sir? So what are you doing? Because the people who lost their work from HGC, which falls under your ministry, the people who lost their jobs in WASA and other places as well, you're going to hire them under this program, sir? POPs, Program for the Upkeep of Public Spaces. You are cabinet minister. You were in cabinet last week, Thursday, when that was announced. So you have all of the details because the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, under whose ministry this program is being rolled out, she has not said that. In fact, she has been more or less mum on this issue. The only statement she's made is to say that this is not CPEP. But what you just said there, she didn't say that. The Prime Minister didn't say that. The cabinet ministers, because they are cabinet and non-cabinet ministers. He's a non-cabinet minister, but he making pronouncements and statements, a fact, on things that he knows nothing about. But he said it, just like when he told us that India would nuke Venezuela. So I want to ask him, sir, so if you are going to hire the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people that you say the PNM always talking about under this program, so is it that persons who were not part of that 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 who was working CPEP, URP, forestry, WASA, HGC, and everywhere else that all your fire people whose contracts were not extended, whose contracts were not renewed, is it that these persons cannot apply? So if you are not a former CPEP worker, URP worker, forestry worker, etc., you need not apply? So what about all the other persons? Like the gentleman that you used for your campaign, one Mr. De Silva, who ever so often pops up on Facebook asking what's going on. Because he ran his blood to water for you during the campaign, getting people to vote for yellow is the code, and when UNC wins, everybody wins, but he's been waiting months now and is still unemployed. All of the people that he told come and vote for the UNC, and who he convinced to vote for the UNC because he was riding hard with you, and got them to vote and made promises to them. And these people are now harassing him and say, but what's going on? Is how much months now? All the time you're telling me wait until budget has been read, budget passed, budget implemented, some of it, and we still without jobs. What's going on? He is one of them whose backs you rode, and he's not 1%, sir. You know, the same Africans, you're always talking about everything is African, and the PNM let down the African and so on, and you're so concerned about African. But that African, sir, is looking for a job. That African is still trying to keep the wolves at bay from eating your face, for promising them the sun, the moon, and the stars, and so far you've not delivered. You're all up in Stuart Young constituency, trying to create jobs and talking about, if you're looking for a job or whatever it is, call whatever, is it, can't remember, whatever the number is, right? Phil, some 3, 4 or something, whatever, Phil, call that number. You need to know the status of your HTC application, call whatever, Phil, right? And he'll help you out there. All these promises that you made. But those folks who are riding with you still looking for work. You earning over 70 grand a month. They're not even earning 70 cents. And they're waiting on you to fulfill your promise. The budget has been read and passed and gone. So, will you be giving them jobs? 13 weeks, not 13 months. 13 weeks, sir. 13 weeks. So, is it that you plan to hire this 30, 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people during this 13 weeks or after the 13 weeks? People want to know because your words are creating expectations. Because people calling me to ask me, I don't know. They hear you say. And that is how I was directed to this video, because you say people heard it and calling me to ask me if I heard about this and if I could give them some information. I have no information. The only information I know is that I got a call asking me for 2 names. That's it. I have no idea what is going to happen after that. I was just very happy as two people who looking for work, who came to me looking for work, and I was able to oblige. That's all I know. He's saying that program is going to take care of this issue. All the people that we complaining about out of work and can't afford to pay the bills, that they will be gainfully employed under this program. So I wait to see. So if they're going to hire 70,000 people under this program, well, Trinidad and Tobago will be the cleanest country this side of the world. So 11,000 people cutting grass is a nation of grass cutters. So what do you call 70,000 people cutting grass? I don't know. We wait to hear from the Prime Minister. I wouldn't preempt her answer. All right, but I imagine that this statement is probably going to result in him once again being told to stay in your lane. He can't stay in his lane for too long. It's like he's suffering from ADHD. He just can't. He just need to come out of his lane. When he does, he understands and finds out why it is he's supposed to stay in his lane. But anyway, that for another time. Folks, it is now 2:34. I should have been at my Christmas party already. So, Rukbit get out back. Rukbit say, tell me how your mommy get billions and she's just a housewife. Tell the people, little boy. Oh my goodness. What else is there? Let me see here. Old lady 8135 is saying all those who are getting paid for doing nothing, isn't that fraud and ripping off the country? That's exactly what it is. They just took ghost at a different level. All right? Collecting pay for no work done. They beat up CPAP and they beat up URP workers. And they claim we're collecting pay for not doing any work. And they're going and sitting down in ministries when they're there and doing nothing. Right? But collecting pay. All who jump in and plane and flying out whenever it is that they want to. Because they could. Collecting pay, your taxpayers' money under false pretenses. But elections have consequences. And we are learning that. We've been learning that every day for the last 8 months. And we will learn it for the next 4 years and 5 months. Marlon McAllister says, waste of time. UNC knows how to BS the country. Their followers see no wrong and hear no wrong. Absolutely. Their ability to discern right from wrong, unfortunately, became obscure, or they totally lost that ability on the 1st of May when their Prime Minister and Attorney General was sworn in. And they will, and until such time as they are replaced, whenever that replacement comes, it is only then will they get back their ability to determine right from wrong and their sense of morality, their perception of what morality and ethics looks like, unfortunately. Merle Duran says, good afternoon. I'm locked on a little late, but I am here. Blessed Sunday to you. Blessed Sunday to you as well. So, folks, I need to leave. Neil Francois says Tobago's election launch was a blast yesterday. I'm heartened to hear that, Neil, and I hope that that launch translates into votes. All right? I see Farley boasting and bigging up his chest about Tobago PNM going and get the backside washed. Oh, Lord. Let me see if I have this saved here. See what let us do, man? I'm going to get us. I know I'm going to get us.
They pulled out 100. When we looked through the files, we saw that the former regime took a loan, a massive loan. They pulled out $165 million. They claimed that we had emergency road works to be done because of inclement weather. They gave up contracts to their friends willy-nilly. They spent out the $165 million. Then they still gave out more contracts on top of that. Because remember, they were hoping to retain the THE and win the election. But they spent all the money and still get their ass cut. And come January 12th, they could bring up all the financiers from Trinidad. They could bring up Penny from Trinidad. They could bring out Rowley from retirement. They could bring out whoever they want. They will get their backside cut come the 12th of January 2026. Stay away.
PNM people in Tobago is all you have him talking like that, eh? Is all you have him talking like that. But you see how he disrespectful? But anyway, like he forget that he is the chief secretary of Tobago, and that Tobago is not only TPP, that you have other persons of different political persuasions in Tobago. But when you could be so disrespectful to PNM supporters, just like the Prime Minister went up the other day and went to the chamber and talking about the anchor holes, totally dismissive of the two PNM members in the House and the PDP. Well, now he gone back across because he realized PDP dead, right? Non-starter, whatever power he thought he had, that the great Watson Duke is no longer great, right? He has now capitulated and has endorsed the TPP. So I don't know if he opened a polemic because as Kamala told us, he had asked her for a job and up to now she didn't give him the job yet. So maybe he hoping that to make a attack back and Fali might give him a work. Who knows? All right? But yeah, you'll have an opportunity on the 12th of January, PNM supporters in Tobago, to fix the mess, right? To correct how should I put it, boy? What happened in 2021, right? That 14-1, you will have an opportunity to correct it. What happened on April 28th, again, you'll have an opportunity to correct it on the 12th of January. I'm not going to come here and talk till I am blue in the face because we did it in 2021 and you all did not listen to us, all right? And right, it is what it is. And all them things you talk about, their contract, give out and all kind of thing. Tell us about the stage in the sea, Fali. Tell us about that. The stage still there? All the money already spent on that. The money that Trevor spent to charter the private jet, to come back home and the hurricane thing. What about that? Tell us. Who paid for it? Did Trevor pay for it? Or did he submit an invoice to you? I'm just asking questions. We want to know. The claim that Watson Duke make about money and contractor and how much contractor in Trinidad and who getting kickback and all of that. What about that? You never really addressed that. The audio between you and Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, the alleged audio, that you never denied, you say you don't have time for that foolishness, right? Where Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, a voice sounding like Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, is making a claim that she would have sent up $100,000 for you all in the last election and so on through Crispin Moore and all of this kind of thing. Is that true? You never denied it, so we're just asking the question, Fali. All right? They totally disregard you with the radar. They have no time for you, and it's only when Watermore and Flower and the Mark bus, then they come and set up a team comprising the Attorney General, Minister, standing order 27-1G to come up and talk, and they just have you there like a rubber stamp, like the two of them that you have sitting in the parliament, right? So you are rubber stamp number 3, and I come up and you're so grateful and thankful for the Prime Minister for sending up this high-level team, all right, and everything. If only you had extended even 1/10 of the courtesy that you've extended to this government since they've come in, if you had extended 1/10 of that to the PNM in the last 4 years, Tobago would have been better off. But don't forget, we have a brand new airport terminal because of the PNM. PNM did that. Don't forget that, right? We have the sea bridge working real good now. You'll have 4 vessels on the sea bridge, not including the Cabo Star. The PNM, so you have 5 vessels on the sea bridge, thanks to the PNM. And do not forget that the UNC had a problem with every single one of those ferries. All the UNC had an issue with, to the point where they wrote to the authorities in Australia, the Australian Attorney General, to complain and accuse of bubble and corruption and foolishness against the government of Trinidad and Tobago and members of the government of Australia at the time, because they wanted to deny you all those 2 ferries, which they're happy to talk about, right? What were your thoughts on that? The same airport terminal that your secretary, well, one of your secretaries for tourism, told the last administration, take that terminal and put it between their legs. All that level of disrespect. And you continue with your disrespectful self and the things that you are allowed to say. If Keith Rowley had said that, well, oh boy, they would have raked him over the coals. But then again, different standards. The PNM held a different standard. All right, you could say that. Nothing wrong with that. Nobody will chastise you. Kamala could tell Con she'll hit him a cuff in his head and meet her outside. Nothing wrong with that. But Stuart Young say something, Keith Rowley say something, oh boy, Marvin Gonzalez say something, Keith Scotland say, anything a PNM politician say, rake them over the coals. Everybody else gets a free pass. And that is what we have to deal with on a daily basis. But our backs are broad and time longer than twine. Folks, yes, old lady says Duke want to eat her food at UNC table with Fali. Exactly. in doubting that. Yeah? But that is Trinidad and Tobago politics. We will chat again soon, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Let me go on and attend to my MP duties. There are some 350 children waiting for me, and I don't want to hold up the proceedings. All right, so we'll chat again soon.